do that. Let's talk now about how trauma shows up in the eyes. Okay, and this is a really important thing because, you know, when I first started doing iridology 40 years ago, I was taught one thing, and then with time and studying, I got frustrated, and just as I was about to quit doing iridology, I learned another style that totally made this work for me. Today we are going to look at x-rays, and we're going to look at eye photos as well. 2019 was not a very good year. I had never broken a bone in my life. The spring of 2019, I was out early in the morning and I slipped on some ice and I fell. I broke 2 bones in my wrist. That required surgery. So I had 2 surgeries at once because the bones were not close enough together to do it in one incision. So I now have plates and screws, 2 plates and two sets of screws, so 12 screws in my wrist. You're going to see the x-rays to prove it. Then I had been out of the cast for a couple of weeks when I tripped on some stairs at my son's house. And I went down, landed on my elbow, and broke my elbow bone right off. Landed back in the hospital with another surgery, this time to put in screws and cables to hold the bones together. So we're going to look at all of that. And I had the presence of mind to actually take iris photos during this process, which is like pretty bizarre, right? Like, who would think of that? At any rate, I did. And I have the proof now. I can show you how this works. My name is Judith Cobb. I'm a master herbalist, natural nutrition clinical practitioner, and a certified comprehensive iridology instructor. I'm a wife. I'm a mother of 7 children. My husband and I have 8 grandchildren, and we live in the cold north, true and free, also known as Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So today we are going to have a look at some really important iridology information. Now, you may have heard the owl story. We're just going to touch on it here. It is significant because this was to do with broken bones as well, right? So the story goes that Ignatz von Peczely was a young boy of about 10 or 11 years old. He caught an owl, or an owl landed on his arm, or somehow he got his hands on this owl. Some people say it was a hawk, so this bird of prey. And somewhere in the process, this owl ended up with a broken leg or wing or something. And this little boy noticed somehow that there was a dark line that formed in the owl's eye. And as the owl healed, the dark line disappeared. Now, I'm going to tell you that this has never been replicated. Not in any animal, not in any human. Okay, you would think that with all of the bird rescue sanctuaries that are out there, somebody would have noticed if something like this had happened. You'd think with all the veterinarians that are out there who deal with wild animals, that somebody would have noticed this. You'd think that vets in a zoo would notice this. So Bill Caradonis says, modern iridology can't explain the owl story. Von Peczely's story from a very long time ago has not been reproduced. So it's just a waste of time to repeat it. It just creates confusion. Critical thinking is required when applied to any topic. And that goes especially with iridology because there's so much old information. And we just had Suzanne log on to the webinar from Denmark. We are so global today. This is so much fun. Okay, so now to the real story. This is what my iris looks like 2 years ago. So in actually almost 3 years ago now, 2 years before the accident, I got a new iridology camera and I wanted to document my eyes. So I took these photos 2 years, almost to the day, 2 years before the first sad accident. And when we look at what is classically known in this left iris as the arm reaction field, and all this damage was on my left arm, okay, all of it. I can show you the scars. And so this is the left iris, and these white lines have been here all along. They were here March of 2017, 2 full years before the accident. So we've got some reflexive reflexes. We've got a little bit of rarefaction between them. I want you to lock this image into your mind's eye. Okay, lock it in. This was me with my broken wrist. My wrist, as you can see, and you know, that's done with a selfie. So it's backwards. Sorry, no, it's not. That's my left arm. I have to turn myself around. You can see my wrist doesn't really have this great big huge bump in it. Well, that was only one of the breaks. That the little bone here actually broke right off, that little knobby bone. So there's now, I don't know if you can still see the scar. Yeah, you can. There's now a steel plate with 6 screws there. But they also discovered that I had broken the other bone, cracked it really nicely. And so you can probably see the scar right in there. That now has a plate with 6 screws as well. So this is while I was in the ER waiting to be seen by the doctor. This is really not a healthy looking wrist, right? And so definitely a break. I was doing my best to keep my spirits up and to not get upset about this, trying to laugh it off. This was the pre-surge x-ray. So what you can see here is your bones are not supposed to have these jagged bits here. They tried to do a closed reduction for everything. So they knocked me out, for which I was apparently grateful because my husband watched the whole thing. They knocked me out for it, which was great. He watched them pull and push and massage, and 2 nurses holding my shoulder while a couple were pulling on my arm, trying to get things to line up, and it just wouldn't go. So it finally meant that I had to have surgery. Now, you can't see it as well, but there is in here, which yes, over here, there is a chipped bone, but you can't see it. I'm not even sure where it is in this diagram, but it's in there. And that was where this other surgery had to happen. Okay, so we've got 2 breaks, 2 significant traumatic breaks that required surgery, which is another trauma, that required screws going into the bones, so yet another trauma. Okay, and this is what I looked like on March the 14th, 2019, after having a double open reduction internal stabilization surgery. I had this massive honking big slab cast that just was heavier than anything. My fingers were so swollen I couldn't move them, and that was, of course, the first homework was start moving your fingers. And you know, they were so swollen and everything had been so disrupted that it was like twitches was all I could do. This, you know, sleeping with the cast, if you've never had to do that, it's a learning curve. You learn where the pillows need to be to keep that arm elevated, to keep the swelling down. And you learn how to roll with the pillows. If you've never done it, I don't encourage you to try, because with the cast, it's not a ton of fun. On March 19th, so this is less than a week post-surgery, that's when the general anesthetic from 3 hours of surgery on my wrist finally were off enough for me to stop throwing up and to feel steady walking. And I thought, okay, I'll take pictures of my eyes. Now I want you to notice one thing here. If you've been with me for any length of time, you know that I am a stickler when it comes to, and I just need to flip back here, to consistency among camera settings. So full disclosure, this was done with my beautiful IE4 from Iris Lab on my Canon Rebel T6i. And with this, Suzanne in Denmark is saying, oh, yeah, is right. F-stop 6.3, shutter speed 1/60, ISO 800. Now, again, I was not quite as concerned about maintaining that accuracy with my photos. So this is a different f-stop, the same shutter speed, the same ISO. So you can see that the image is a bit brighter, but we're only looking at fibers here, right? We're only looking to compare, have the fibers changed? Has the shading changed? Look down here in that arm zone. Do you remember what it looks like in the other image? This is all exactly the same. There is not a speck of change. I would have expected, if the Ignatz von Peczely story was true, if that applied to humans especially, and we know that human eyes especially the iris, has a very different structure from animals anyways, but there's no difference. There is no big black line here that says you broke your arm and you did a good job. By the way, if the orthopedic surgeon ever says you did a good job, that's not a good thing. Just saying. Can't tell you how many times I had residents and surgeons say, you did a really good job. Yeah, no, not a good job at all. Okay, and so as we're looking at this, again, notice that, but notice this, that there is no change in fiber structure, there's no change in shading, it is the same. So this is 1 week after the break, so the bone wasn't healed yet. It had started healing. I had the implants, still have the implants. We're talking to the surgeon about that in the next few months to get some of them out because I really don't like them, but they're in there. There is a major disruption to my tissue. This is, you can see both of the plates here. So this is 2 weeks post-surgery when they were going to take me out of the slab cast and put me in a regular cast. So they needed to make sure the incision had closed properly, that there was no infection. And what we've got here is 2 separate and distinct metal plates. Each of them has 6 screws. I mean, the top end of this has 3 screws into that little tiny bit of bone to hold it together. And there we go. If that's what the inside of my arm looks like, and no, I do not set off metal detectors, just saying, but my arm is semi-bionic. Looking at it from another angle, you can see again clearly the 2 separate ones, this one holding the bone that was broken down here, this one holding the little bone on, and there we have it. It's just, I think that's how they go, at any rate. I'm not a great student when it comes to names of bones. Sorry, just don't do that. But again, with all of that metal, I was concerned that I would be Robo Judith. Oh, Suzanne, you are so funny. She says, call me Robo Judith. That is hilarious. Okay, so what did my arm look like? That was 1 incision with all the residual blood from the surgery. I had no idea that that incision would continue to bleed for so much. When they took the cast off, I nearly passed out when I saw how much dried blood was in the dressing. It was gross and disgusting. This is not surgery. This is just blood settling in that had settled into wrinkles and creases in my hand. So this was 1 surgery. And this was the other one going up the side of my arm. Okay. And so that stuff is in there. That's what my eyes look like. That is 2 weeks post-surgery, 2 surgeries under 1 anesthetic. What did my eyes look like at just after that? So April 3rd, no change. This is still the same. No change. We didn't get a dark line forming. We didn't get something disappearing. It is all still exactly the same. Why? Because breaking the arm, having surgery does not change the genetic structure, right? The irides reflect genetic inheritance, genetic potentials, not accident, not injury, not what we've inflicted on ourselves. So let's look at those 3 images side by side. I'm going to move my camera a little closer for my Instagram friends. Okay, so we're looking down here at the, well, just at that 20-minute mark, right in here. And we come over a few days later, still the same. Come over a few weeks later, still the same. Now, it looks like things have rotated and changed position, but just notice this is the camera was tilted slightly here on my face. That's what happens when you try to do your own photography, even with a great camera, but you only have 1 good hand, right? All right, so then on May 12th, it was Mother's Day. And I fell down the stairs at my son's house, and you can see that the elbow is no longer connected to the arm bone. Happy Mother's Day. 9 weeks after the first accident, I fell down, landed on ceramic tile, broke the olecranon. For those of you who know, I had to look that one up. I had no idea what my olecranon was. And there it was. All right, so they took the x-ray. They did not try to do an external reduction on that because This bone is connected to this bone by all kinds of tendons and ligaments and soft tissue-y stuff that we're just going to keep pulling this over. So they came in and said, yep, you just need surgery. We're going to give you a slab cast till we can get you into the OR, which was not till the next day. So I had that bone totally broken off for about 30 hours. This is what my elbow looks like waiting in the ER. Just kind of a big ball hanging on the end. Not the way it's supposed to look. But there we go. So, you know, I was teasing the nurses and saying, you ought to give me frequent flyer points for the amount of time I'm spending in your ER. They thought it was funny, but they didn't have any frequent flyer points to offer me. This is after the surgery. So now I had a big, heavy surgical cast on my elbow, was given strict instructions to not move that arm for anything, just to wiggle my fingers. Now, if any of you end up in this situation, scrub tops. Right, surgical scrub tops, the best answer. Wide sleeves, you can get a cast through it. So just saying, all right. They've got lots of little pockets to put things in. Right on. So that was May 12th. Let me just pop back there again. Just oh, right. So the break was May 12th. This is my eye on May 29th. Let's let our Instagram friends have a closer look as well. So as you look at that, this area is exactly the same. Again, I forgot to note what my camera settings were here, and I wasn't quite as on ball. I mean, this is like on the ball. This is 2 weeks later, you know, after 2 major general anesthetics in a couple of months, my head was starting to feel burned out. And so, but this arm area looks exactly the same as it does on all the other photos. You would think that if breaking a bone was going to change something in the iris, that breaking 3 bones in 9 weeks, having 3 surgeries in 9 weeks, having all kinds of hardware installed in that same time would show up somewhere, wouldn't you? But it didn't. Not there. Nada, did not happen. Because again, breaking my arm did not change my genes. So there again was the wrist. Doctors were pleased, healing nicely. And fortunately, they were very concerned, did the first accident jar anything loose? And it had not. And this is what my elbow looks like now. I've got this pin that's anchored in that actually, when you look, you can see that it's right there. That little bump right there. And then there's a wire to it that they twisted to that, and it goes between the bones here, so it loops around. You've got a bone there and it loops around there, then hooks to this pin, and that's what held everything in place. All right, so I hope this isn't making any of you nauseous to be looking at x-rays. I know that kind of messes some people up, but there we are, September 2019. Couple months later, looks just the same. Not a change. My conclusion from all this is that breaks, surgeries, and traumas do not reflexively show up in the iris. They don't change our genetic structure. So has this been fun and interesting? You want to know more about how you can learn more iridology? Yeah. So Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology is starting up again in April. It's the course that I've created. It is an IPA approved iridology course, and it prepares you for certification if you so choose. So let me know in the comments if you want to hear a little bit about this. Okay. Let's look at this. All right. You want to know something about the course? Yeah. Thank you for that. Okay. So here we are. I'm going to actually turn off my camera so that it's not blocking anything that is important here. For those of you on actually for all of you, I'm going to shrink down the screen size so our Instagram friends can actually see the whole slide better, because there's information right to the edges. There we go. Awesome. Okay, so the next go around of Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology is starting mid-April. Now, some of you have been with me for a long time and you've been waiting for registration to open. Some of you are probably pretty new, but that's okay. It doesn't hurt to know about the course. Registration is finally open. If you want or need more information than what I'm going to share with you in the next 15 to 20 minutes, you want to go to this purple link, Iridology-Education, or sorry, the green link, Iridology-Education Priority-April, okay? That's if you need more information. If you already know that you want to do the class, then please go to iridology.education/priority and just get enrolled. The next course is starting again mid-April, April 16th and April 17th, as you see. We're going to do 2 sections of this, and the reason for that is 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. my time translates to these times around the world. Well, for those of you who are in Australia, 3 a.m. is not a great time. Just saying, yeah, unless you're a real night owl. So I decided to try running a second section that will meet on Fridays and schedule it so that it's 8 a.m. in Australia. Now, I know Australia has 3 different time zones, so it might be 7 a.m., it might be 9 a.m. for you, whatever. All right, but you can double check that. When you register for, you have to choose a day when you register, and that's the course that you will be in for the duration. Also, remember to check your time zones. The course is scheduled based on Mountain Daylight Time. So when you go into the time zone converter, please double check and use Calgary, Alberta as the time zone and put in April 16th so you get that conversion to Mountain Daylight Time. Registration is open. I limit my classes to 10 students per class group. I call a class group a cohort. The recording of the webinar that I held last night, I don't know if any of you have seen that on YouTube, or if some of you might have joined me for that as well, has been posted on YouTube and in the Iridology Education Facebook group. It will be there until Saturday, so tomorrow at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, because we're still standard here. And that 6 p.m. tomorrow is also when the $400 early registration bonus is going to disappear. So again, if you already know you want to get into the class, iridology.education/priority is your link. If you want more information first, go to education/priority-April, get the information, and then from there you can continue on getting more information as you need it. You know, it's good to know, you're probably like me, I would assume, whenever I'm looking at purchasing something, I go online and I look for reviews. So this is a review that one of my students posted. And this is Karen. She came to me with no iridology training. And after she had trained and she decided to certify, she said, Judith, I just returned from a regenerative detoxification course where iridology is implemented. I spread the word about what a wonderful teacher you are. Most people I talked with did not have anywhere near the same experience and their iridology education. No support, lots of unanswered questions, and a lot of confusion. Mostly they finished their classes not knowing how to implement what they had learned. I feel so absolutely blessed to have been taught by you. I feel totally supported, even still, as I've graduated almost 2 years ago now. Now, this is an old thing. It's probably 3 years by now. I don't think there is anyone out there practicing, educating, and teaching iridology like you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm eternally grateful for your never-ending patience and support. On the other hand, Michelle Davies came to me with 3 certificates in iridology, and from Dr. Peczely and one from Darko Purse, but she says, this is the most amazing iridology course I've taken. Judith's course is top on my list. Most importantly, it taught her how to put it all together and make a proper assessment. Fabulous. So here we go. The course is taught via 20 live 2-hour-long interactive webinars, and it has a value of $23.95 Canadian. Have you ever purchased anything in those Canadian dollars? They're kind of exotic, right? Nobody thinks of the Canadian currency. We all think of the US dollar, right? Or we think of British pound sterling. So we're going to talk about what it means to be in Canadian dollars in just a few minutes. But first I want you to think about, it's a 40-hour course. If you had to go somewhere to take a 40-hour course as, say, a 5 or 6 day workshop, first you've got your tuition, and you're going to look online, I know you are, and you're going to find that there are other IPA certified instructors who are really good. They're totally qualified, And they're teaching the course either as a 5 or 6 day or as 2-3 day weekends. They're charging between $1,200 and $2,200 US for their program. Again, taught by excellent instructors, but their tuitions don't include hotel for a full week, airfare, your meals. Even if you are really frugal when you travel and you can do it on $30 US a day, what about your transportation from the airport to the venue and back, travel insurance, time off work? Easily, you're going to spend $4,200 US, easily. Let's talk about those Canadian dollars for just a second now. If you're in the US, your dollar is worth about 25% more than mine. What that means is when you do your payment through, it's going to be through PayPal, what's going to happen is PayPal is going to convert the $23.95 to US dollars. Okay, your receipt will still show $23.95 Canadian, but your credit card will show US, and you're going to find it's going to come out at about $1,800 US. If you're in Australia, you're going to see that it's going to come out to about 2,500 Australian dollars. And you are so thankful I'm not charging in US dollars, right? If you're in Australia. If you're in the UK, you're looking at about 1,400 British pounds sterling. Again, you're grateful that I'm not charging in US because it would cost you 25% more. Another really important thing that I know about 5- and 6-day workshops is you don't learn as much. They may cover the same curriculum, but by the time you get to the end of like day 2, your brain is mush. You are so swimming in all this new information that it's really hard to learn anything more. And so I found that teaching 2 hours once a week gives my students time to practice what they've learned, to review, to just make sure they've got it all before they come back to class. Gives them time to figure out if they've got more questions they need answered, right? And because the course is live interactive webinars, you ask your questions live, you get your real-time answers, which is so important. Susan Pedipus, who has finished her coursework and is just preparing for her final, says Judith doesn't just teach identification of markings and what they mean. She goes a step further to teach how to use that information to create a health plan when working with clients. So important. It does you no good to be able to recognize a marking or how markings work together. Let me rephrase that. It does you no good to know what a marking is. You have to know how that marking affects and impacts other markings, and you have to understand what does that mean for the recommendations you need to make. And yes, you need other modalities if you're going to be an iridologist. You need herbology or nutrition or homeopathy or aromatherapy or flower essences. You need something because iridology is an assessment tool. It's not a healing tool. Sharon Bimrose, a lovely naturopath from Australia, says she had taken iridology as a part of her naturopathy training, but my course, Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology, surpassed her previous training in structure, content, delivery, documentation, and support. As importantly, she says, iridology has certainly reduced the time required for prioritizing a treatment plan. That is huge. And that is one of the big things that I want all of my students to walk away with. If they are practicing as holistic practitioners, iridology done right saves you time, encourages your clients to be long-term repeat clients, makes you more accurate in what you do, and helps you create a deeper rapport very quickly. When we are in the program, again, it's taught by live webinars, so I encourage all of my students to log on for their class time with their camera and their microphone so that we can actually talk back and forth. I like to watch my students' facial expressions because sometimes I'll see them giving me that, I'm really thinking hard look. Well, they don't know they're giving me that look, but they've got that look on their face. And that allows me to say, got a question? Is there something you need more information on, right? And that helps me to give them what they need, and it is critical. We have lots of live back and forth to answer questions as they come up. Do you like the live interactive kind of training? Is that what works best for you? Or are you better off having just videos to watch and just hope you get it all? Most of us like the live interactive, right? If something doesn't stick, maybe you have, maybe you've done the class, you attended the class, but afterwards you're studying and you're reviewing and you're going, dang, I missed that point. I don't understand. Every class is recorded and stored on a student site for playback on demand. So if you have missed a class, or if you've just missed a point, you can go back and re-listen to the class. If you've only missed a point, do you really want to spend 2 full hours going through the entire class listening for that one thing? Probably not. So I have recorded every topic individually as well, and the topics for every lesson are in that lesson. So if you just need to review one little 3 or 5 or 10-minute snippet, you can find that topic and just review that one. So you get the class really 3 times over. 3 times over. In university, you have to buy your own textbooks, right? Or you have to rent them, right? It's an ongoing expense for you, and most iridology teachers rather make you purchase a textbook. So what that means is that the most popular textbooks out there run for about $250 US. And so you'd have to pay that. But I've created a digital downloadable textbook that my students receive as a gift from me when they are enrolled in the class. Full color, fully labeled. Now, what you might not know is that IPA certified instructors have to have their textbooks vetted, approved by the IPA Certification and Standards Committee. They audit the materials and then they let you know if it's good enough. And if it's not good enough, they suspend your teaching license until you bring it up. I submitted mine and look at what they said. Thank you for sending a PDF copy of your book because it is only PDF. I must say that it is a beautifully written book following the IPA curriculum to a T. Your written explanations and pictures were excellently detailed, and any student should be honored to study from your work. The IPA Certification and Standards Committee reviewed your book and gave an outstanding review regarding following the syllabus, pictures, and knowledge of iridology material. So you're getting materials that are top-notch. Teachers also expect you to purchase an iridology map. Typically, they charge about $25. I've created a constitutional iridology map in a digital format, and again, that is my gift to you when you are registered for the class. Cheat sheets. We've taken the entire curriculum, distilled it down into charts and point form notes to remind you of everything you need. So when you know what the markings look like, you can quickly look through your cheat sheets to remind you of what questions do you want to ask, what kinds of recommendations could you make, you know, that kind of stuff. There's no other teacher that has cheat sheets. Just saying. Worth $175. I have had other teachers ask if I would sell them a copy of my textbook or my cheat sheets. I'm kind of possessive, and the answer is no. These are for my students only. I am very protective of that. This is a huge one. The private Facebook group and the office hours calls, $10,000 value each. And you might be going, that's a big ego. And I'm going, no, that's a big heart. Most courses, when you finish it, your teacher cuts you off, kicks you out, you're left on your own. I've had students that have studied with other instructors come and say, ask me, will you mentor me? And I say, go back to your instructor. And they say, I did. She said, figure it out. And so I said, that's not how this works. So for the duration of the course and for the long term afterwards, my students have access to our private Facebook group and the office hours calls where we meet to discuss cases my students are working on. I don't care if you certified last week or if you're brand new or if you've been certified under me for 3 years, you are welcome to join all of these at any time. So this is long-term support. Heavens, I pay mentoring for my business, for the business side of my business, I pay $5,000 every 6 months to be mentored and supported, right? This is $10,000 value once. Those of you who are in Australia or in other time zones, we've scheduled the office hours so that at least one of them a month works in your time zone. All right, so that's an important thing as well. We record the office hours calls. They are stored on the student site for 18 months. So that's another $23.95 value. This is what Laura Orvieto said about those conference calls. She says twice a month she offers an open Zoom conference meeting where we can discuss our eye photos with her as well as with past and present students. So seriously, you're working with someone's eyes, you have a way of getting an image and you want help with it, you want understanding, you let us know. We schedule you into the office hours roster and you get the mentoring, the coaching. You tell us what you see, tell us what the client was concerned about, ask us questions, we'll ask you questions, and it's really a great learning experience. Now, I've said that this course, it contains the entire curriculum to prepare you to certify with IPA. Some of my students don't want certification, some of them don't need it, and that's perfectly okay. But regardless, even if you decide you don't want to be certified, I encourage all of my students to do the IPA 1 exam and the IPA 2 exam. As an IPA certified instructor, I administer those personally. IPA exam 1 is 10 case studies, which I provide to you. You do them, I grade them, and then we meet together one-on-one to go over your work to make sure it is solid and to mentor you and to tutor you if there's anything that needs to be tweaked, but certainly to pat you on the back for a job well done as well. When you've done those 10, then we give you a case study that IPA gives to me. I give it to you, you write it up as an iris analysis, you send it back to me, I mark it, and then we meet again for another hour to make sure you are solid. So this amounts to about 12 hours of my time that I am devoting to you one-on-one for marking your work and then for meeting with you. Most other, and I've never found one that actually includes this in their course tuition, most other instructors have a separate exam mentoring fee. I include it in my tuition, but it has a 10-month time limit. So from the time you finish your course, I give you 10 months to get your exam prep done. If you choose to complete your IPA certification, you will need to purchase your own IPA student membership before you do your exam. You will also need to give them proof that you have completed an anatomy and physiology course with a grade of over 80%. So if you don't have the A&P under your belt, there is a list of recognized courses on the IPA site that you can do it by correspondence. If you have other training, like you're a registered nurse or a massage therapist or a naturopath, and you did the A&P as a part of that, and you actually have the credentials to say you're an ND, then you don't need to prove it. You just need to show your ND credentials. The total value of this program, $31,302. Now, that actually is what I could sell the course for, because that is legitimately what it's worth, right? It really is. I could sell this for that because I give you lifelong mentoring, which is worth a chunk of that tuition. But charging that tuition would defeat my purpose. It would defeat a part of my purpose, which is to get iridology out there. I want as many nutritionists and herbalists and naturopaths using constitutional iridology as I can possibly muster. So I think I've come up with what you'll find is a much more equitable starting point. The tuition for the course is $23.95 Canadian. And because you are here with me today, and I just need to look, okay, so Susan is just asking, is the Danish anatomy class okay since I passed it 3 years ago, but I do not have the points, what do I do? Suzanne, you would need to go back to where you took the course and get a transcript that shows that you passed and shows that you had 80%. It doesn't matter where the course is, as it just needs to be vetted by IPA. So you would send them information about the course and they would check it out and tell you if it is acceptable or not. Okay, so I think the Danish anatomy is the same as the Canadian anatomy and the American anatomy, just teasing you a little bit. And it doesn't matter that it was 3 years ago, as long as you can produce some kind of a transcript that shows what the course was, a description of the course, and what your grade was. Okay, it's the same as nurses use. Yeah, so it would be fine. Just get your transcript and that would be fine. So what I've got for you is a special offer, and this is a very time-sensitive offer. And I'm doing this because we're 5 weeks away from start date still. If you are committed and you want this course and you know you want this course and you're willing to commit by getting enrolled, before tomorrow, that's Saturday, February 29th, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, so watch those time zones, I am willing to give you a little discount of $400. So $19.95 Canadian is what the tuition will be, but only until Saturday, February 29th, that's tomorrow at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. This is really important that you recognize that this is a time limited offer. After 6 p.m. tomorrow, this is automatically going to roll up. So what does that mean? US, that's about $1,500. Australia, that's about 2,100. British pound sterling is about 1175. Again, I limit my classes to no more than 10 students. It is critical to me that the classes are small enough that you have your questions answered, that you're not having to fight for a spot to ask questions, and that you're not feeling insecure or uncomfortable because there's so many people and you're afraid your question is stupid, right? I constantly tell my students, there's no such thing as a stupid question, and I want every question asked. And I love it because it shows me where I maybe needed to do a better job of teaching something. I'm totally willing to admit that I'm human, and I sometimes maybe don't focus on something as much as I should. So when a student asks for more information, more clarification, it allows me to do that. So I'm going to encourage you, if you're ready and you want to do this, let's do this together. This is what it looks like when you go to iridology.education/priority. This is what it looks like. You choose your date right here. And when you choose that date, it's going to open it in a new browser window, new browser tab. It's going to take you to a page that looks like this. On this page, you can choose whether you want to make one payment or whether the 5 payment plan of $449 Canadian a month suits your budget better. Those links, so clicking here or here, will take you to the the PayPal page where you may need to log in, or you can, at the bottom, you can just say pay with your credit or Visa debit card down here if you don't want to log in. Once you have enrolled and paid, you will be taken to a thank you page that looks like this. And this tells you what happens next. You're going to receive a couple of emails from me. One will come quite quickly that has this link. And then, no, this won't be an email. This just will show up for you. And then you're going to get an email within one business day that will have your contract. So you need to fill in your student contract, submit it to me, and then as soon as I've got that, within one business day of that, I will finish your registration for the course. I have to do it manually. Some parts of this are not automated. And then you will be able to log on to your student site when you get that. It's going to open with something that shows you course materials. And when you click on these 3 little lines up here in the left-hand corner, it's going to open up a sidebar that shows you all of the lessons. And when you click on a lesson, it will open up all of the parts for that. Now, just so you know, I've got the lessons locked. You will only have access to one. The first week it'll be 1 lesson, and then the day before your next actual class, the next lesson will open. Why would I do that? Well, I do that because I'm a school marm. I nearly graduated as a school teacher before I decided that I didn't want to be in a classroom like that. And I do that because I want you to spend time really reviewing, really learning, really making sure it's solid, not skipping ahead. So important, because we build this course logically, sequentially, in order. And if you skip ahead, the risk of you not getting that foundation is so strong. And so, few questions. How long will it take you to do the course? Well, 20 weeks to go through the curriculum with me. And then I give you 10 more months after that to finish your IPA exam 1 and 2 if you decide you want to do those. Okay. And again, if you know you want to do the course for sure and you want to get registered, iridology.education/priority. If you need more information, go to iridology.education/priority-April. Again, remember that if you want to certify, it is your responsibility to buy your IPA student membership prior to your exam. It is your responsibility to make sure you've got an A and P class. You can write the exam before you have the A and P, but IPA will not issue your certification until they've got proof of your A and P. How much time do I need to set aside to complete the program? 2 hours for the live class, of course, and then 2 to 3 hours to practice. I tell my clients there are no eyes, or my students rather, there are no eyes that are safe, and I encourage them to be looking at eyes constantly. What else do you need to buy for this course? You need a 5 to 10 power magnifying glass. You need a pen light, and you need a lighted magnifier. About a week before the course, you will have access to the Facebook group by then. As soon as you enroll, I give you access to the Facebook group and to the office hours. And so about a week before your class starts, I will post Amazon links to items that look good. I don't make anything off that. I'm just showing you those are the kinds of bits of equipment that you would want to buy. Costs about $60 US, roughly, maybe. So it's not expensive and it lasts forever. If I don't like the course, can I get a refund? This is a certification course for professionals. So as such, refunds are not available for any reason. I want students that are committed to staying with it. And so we don't do refunds. There we go. So if you are ready to get enrolled, there again is the information. There's the dates and times. Choose your day wisely because you don't get to flip between Thursdays and Fridays. You get to stay in the one. And I do that because if they both fill up with 10 and you want to move out of one that puts 11, then I have broken my word of keeping my classes to 10 or fewer. So you need to commit to the time and days that you want to be there. Awesome. Are there any other questions? I love that Suzanne has been sending little notes and making lots of comments, and that's brilliant. Love it, love it, love it. I love the interaction. I always love interaction, which is probably why I love teaching online, because it's a great way to do it. And I am just trying to open up the Q&A, Suzanne. For some reason, my computer is not letting me see the Q&A panel anymore, which is really weird. And I would bet, there we go. Okay, so, all right, so she is actually asking, okay, yes, okay. So would that be Sunday at 0 o'clock CET that the offer stops, or, I'm not sure what time zone CET is, but you know, if we actually look at a time and date converter online right now, and you're in Denmark, correct? Does Denmark have more than one time zone? That would be one thing that I do not know. I'm hitting all the wrong keys here. Just give me a moment here. Time zone converter is my favorite one, and it comes up here. And so I'm going to put in Calgary, and we are going to give this the April 16th date. Oh no, we don't need to convert that yet. We're just going to Denmark. And Denmark, Copenhagen. All right, so if we are putting in 6 p.m. here, that puts it to 2 a.m. your time on Sunday, February 29th. Okay, and that is CET. So we are 8 hours different, so that gives you till 2 a.m. Sunday morning. And for the type of camera, I do not encourage my students to buy a camera at the outset. I absolutely do not. Most of the little iriscopes that are out there are not good enough. And I encourage you to start with handheld equipment. The pen light, the magnifier. I know that with the training you're doing, you're thinking, I want a camera, I want to be, right up there. I've had students who love iridology, but they discover they're not using it. And so they bought the equipment. They bought like a $3,000 setup, and now they're trying to sell it, right? And I would say, so if you're just please don't buy a camera. Don't buy a camera. We will look at the types of equipment beyond the basic handheld stuff later on in the class. Really important for me, okay? I've already ordered one to practice with. Oh, okay. You have a magnifying glass. Great. What you need then is, I really suggest having a lighted magnifier. and a pen light to go with the magnifying glass, right? You can use this without the light if you want, or with, but we want to be able to move the light around. That's really important because it changes what we see in the eye. And again, seriously, an iriscope that is a 5 megapixel is not good resolution. It will have fixed lighting, which is going to stranglehold you in how you do an iris analysis. And so I really don't recommend them. I don't care whether they're $79 US or $400 US or $800 US. I don't know how that converts to what you're doing. I really, really would actually suggest at this point, just return it. And I know that might sound harsh, but I would say just return it, take that money and put it in a little bank account. And every time you look at somebody's eyes with your handheld equipment, just put another, and I don't know the conversion between Canadian dollars and krona, but just put another handful of krona into the piggy bank so that when you get to the end of your course and you know you love iridology and you are feeling really comfortable with doing it this way, you can buy your camera without having any debt, and you can know you're getting a camera that actually is going to serve you well for many years. You will outgrow a 5 megapixel USB camera within 2 months. It will be not the right thing to do. So I know that sounds harsh, but I would really not encourage, I don't encourage my students to use those. The pictures are not high quality, and you won't be nearly as happy with that as you will be with a real camera. Even if you have to wait a year to buy a full-blown camera because it took you that long to save up for it, I really encourage you to hold off. Just hold off, all right? And Suzanne, great questions, great questions. Are there any other questions from anyone on Facebook or on Instagram or on the webinar? Any other questions that I can answer for you? I hope that what you've seen here, beyond the fact that it's a fabulous course that's coming up, I hope you've also seen that I have a tremendous passion for teaching, and I really, really want my students to actually end up being better iridologists than I am. And I feel strongly that if I give them the right foundation, if I give my students a super strong foundation, and if I teach them how to ask the right kinds of questions, that they can all be a better iridologist than I am. That's not saying I'm a bad one. My instructor is Bill Cardona, who is one of the gentlemen who brought constitutional iridology to North America. And he frequently says nice things about me, which I really appreciate. But I just want you to know that my goal is to really to help my students be the best they can be, to help us build iridology's reputation as a serious science, as a real science, not as a woo-woo thing. And yeah, so that's where we're at. Anything else I can help you with today? I've had a ton of fun. Teaching is just it for me. It's my iridology, teaching, pregnancy, stuff like that. Okay. Okay, Suzanne is saying, I really want to study with you. I have to find the money somehow, but maybe after I finished my naturopath educating, or what do you think? All right, so this is going to be my honest, straight from the heart answer here. If you are currently studying naturopathy or massage therapy or herbology or nutrition or aromatherapy or flower essences, my suggestion is don't wait until you finish that before you take iridology. Now, here's why. Iridology is the one piece of my training that helps me pull everything together. As I learned, I had studied ginseng iridology to begin with, and that was just, I did it for 5 years solid, and then 5 years easing back because it didn't work for me. And that was when I learned constitutional. Constitutional started to make sense because as I learned to look at the eyes and as I learned to understand what I was seeing, I could look at that and I could say, well, this marking works with this marking, works with this marking. And it would explain to me why my client was prone to having certain symptoms. Because I understood that inherent predisposition, I could then go back into my training as with herbs and with nutrition and with aromatherapy and with lifestyle skills and with all kinds of things. And I could start pulling out, yeah, we want to work with this herb and I need to do this suggestion with their diet and they need to do this with their lifestyle. So it helped me to literally pull all of my different sciences together to make my client programs. I was having troubles with that before I learned constitutional. And so I've had other people, other students in my program who were midstream with their nutrition training or their herb training. They've decided to dive in and do the iridology training, and they have said the exact same thing. They have said that iridology actually gives clarity to all of the other things that they are learning. It helps them pull it all together. Yeah, because it is so much to do with both. And Suzanne says I can count on her to ask lots of questions. Have I had other foreign students whose first language isn't English hope to understand all the words? You would be my first student where English was not your first language, but I will say that from what I'm seeing here, you don't seem to have a problem with English, Suzanne. And you know, it's the kind of thing where we might need to get a medical dictionary of some kind or you know, we might need to find some resources to help translate, but I don't think so because I'm going to be teaching in English and you'll figure out the Danish side of things. I'm sure you will, because I'm sure you're just that smart. And you know, so what if you have to use an English word with a client? So Danish, 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 lacuna, Danish, Danish, Danish. That's okay. You'll know what lacuna means and you can explain that English word to them in Danish. Right? You'll be fine. You'll be fine. I can see your command of the English language from the notes you've sent me. Your English is probably better than mine, Suzanne. Just saying. Okay. So I would not be worried about you in the course at all. Not one little bit. All right. So I think you'll be fine. I didn't even realize, I knew you lived in Denmark, but I didn't know that English wasn't your first language. Especially if you take the certification, they actually have the certification now. They're working at putting it into different languages, and maybe Danish is one of them. You might be able to do the exam in your native language. Okay, so that might be fine. And IPA will accept my, yeah, you know what? Again, I know they've translated it into the exam into 2 or 3 different languages already. And so, yeah. I don't think you've got anything to worry about. And Cindy and Oilvald and Nurdanas, I can't even read your name. Yeah, thank you for being with me on Instagram as well. That's wonderful, right? So does that answer questions? Are there any more questions that I can answer for you? Instagram is getting ready to cut me off. They only let me do a 1-hour live, so we're gonna wrap that up. And how often do you have to reinsert? That is a good question. Instagram, I need to say goodbye to you. Thanks for being with me. Bye for now. There we go. And that's done. How often do you need to recertify? You don't. You do have to do upgrade hours, right? So every 2 years, you have to accumulate 20 hours of upgrade. And those CEUs can be split. You can do 10 hours of iridology and 10 hours of anything else that is holistic health related. If you attend an IPA symposium, or if you buy the recordings of the annual IPA symposiums, you can count that as 10 hours of upgrade. So, you know, they go all over the place. Like they just did a cruise off Florida for the symposium. That wasn't going to work for me. My dad is critically ill and I'm not leaving to go anywhere until he passes away is what it comes down to. That they actually did last year's just 6 or 8 months ago in Australia. And again, my dad's been ill for 3 years, so I've been staying close to home. And so because I couldn't go to those, I just bought the recordings of the Australian one, and that gives me an automatic 10 hours, and I'm watching them. But then I'm easy to get 10 hours of nutrition and herbology. That's the easy part. So every 2 years, you have to renew your membership annually, but you only need 20 hours of continuing education spread out over 2 years. Okay, so that's how that all works. Excellent. Any other questions? You're asking such good questions, Suzanne. I like this. I like this. Like I said, I don't think there's anything like a stupid question. I like to answer questions. I like to make sure my students and my prospective students are totally in the know, that there are no surprises, and that they feel rock solid. That is so important to me. Awesome. So it sounds like you're doing fine with that. So I think we are ready to wrap this up then. I want to thank those of you who have been with me on Facebook and those of you who've been with me live on the webinar. Absolutely brilliant. Good questions. I hope you enjoyed the information about broken bones and how it really doesn't change your eyes at all. And I really hope that you will consider joining me for the next go round of Iridology, of Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology, that starts in April, because it would be delightful to have you. I look forward to seeing you again on the free webinars, and I hope to see you enrolled for the class real soon. Thanks so much, and we will talk to you later. Bye for now.